Okay, now we're doing review 6.4, and the first question says multiply and simplify. So we've got to multiply this quotient, cosine of theta divided by 1 minus sine theta times 1 plus sine theta. So this equals, upstairs we're just going to have cosine theta times, I'm not going to expand that yet. But downstairs, notice when we find the product of these two, we get the difference of two squares, which will be 1 minus sine squared theta. And as you well know, 1 minus sine squared theta equates to cosine squared theta. And up here we have the factor cosine of theta and 1 plus sine of theta. And one of the factors of cosine divide out. And now we just have 1 over cosine of theta plus sine theta over cosine of theta. And that simplifies to secant theta. And this quotient simplifies to tan theta. And we're done with that one. Well, now we're doing question 2, and we have to add these two together. We've got sine theta plus cos theta in the numerator on this side, and cosine theta minus sine theta in the numerator on the right. Our common denominator is going to be the product of cosine theta sine theta. So we need to get that common denominator, so we'll multiply this one by 1 in the form of sine theta over sine of theta. And we'll multiply this side by 1 in the form of cosine of theta over cosine of theta. Now notice we have our common denominators, and that common denominator is sine theta cosine of theta. Now when we multiply this out, expand this, what we get is sine squared theta plus sine theta cosine of theta. And distributing that cosine of theta there, we get cosine squared theta minus sine theta cosine of theta. Now, these sine theta cosine of theta is going to add out. And what we have is sine squared theta plus cosine squared theta plus cosine squared theta over sine theta cosine of theta. And these will just become 1. The sum of sine squared plus cosine squared theta is 1. And here we have sine theta cos theta in the denominator, but replacing them with their reciprocals, we get cosecant theta times secant theta, and we're done. Now for question 3, we have 3 identities to establish. The first one, 3a, is cosine squared theta times the quantity 1 plus tan squared theta equals 1. And keep in mind, too, an identity you must know. 1 plus tan squared theta equals secant squared theta. So we're going to warehouse that. Now, the form is you write down the equation. We've got it. Now we're going to start over again, and we're going to write down the left side, cosine squared theta, and 1 plus tan squared theta. And we're going to leave the right side alone. We're going to equal, and we're going to keep simplifying this. Cosine squared theta times, and because of this identity, I can equate this to secant squared theta equals. Now this is the same as cosine squared theta times 1 over cosine squared theta. And the cosine squared thetas divide out, and that equals 1, and we're done. Notice there's a form to proving identities. This is the form. You start with one side, and you keep simplifying until you get to that, get to your destination. In this case, it was 1.